So, Euphoria is officially over, and honestly, I don't think anyone was prepared for the reaction we're seeing right now. What was supposed to be one of the most anticipated television finales in recent memory has turned into one of the most divisive. Some fans are calling the ending heartbreaking and powerful. Others are saying it barely felt like Euphoria at all. And just when viewers were still trying to process everything that happened, news broke that this wasn't simply the end of a season, it was the end of the entire series. No season 4, no continuation, nothing. But that's not even the part everyone is talking about. Because the finale delivered a devastating twist that many viewers had suspected for months, yet somehow it still managed to shock people when it finally happened. The episode wasted no time raising the stakes. As multiple storylines collided, tensions reached a breaking point. We watched as Laurie's situation spiraled out of control, with the walls seemingly closing in around her from every direction. Rather than face the consequences that were coming, she made a decision that permanently changed the course of the story. At the same time, Rue found herself caught in an increasingly dangerous situation involving Alamo, a situation that quickly turned deadly.
At first, it looked like Rue might finally be finding a way out. She appeared determined to set things right and recover what had been taken. But as viewers soon realized, things were heading somewhere much darker. Alamo had already begun to suspect that something wasn't right, and his actions made it clear that trust was gone. What followed would ultimately become the most talked about moment of the entire finale. For years, fans have wondered how Rue's story would end. Would she finally overcome her addiction? Would she find peace? Would she get the second chance so many people wanted for her? Instead, the finale delivered a conclusion that was both tragic and brutally unforgiving. After taking the pills given to her, Rue's story began moving toward its final chapter. The emotional sequence that followed hit viewers especially hard. We watched her revisit important moments from her life. Familiar faces appeared, memories resurfaced. The people who shaped her journey seemed to surround her one last time. Then came the moment that made many fans realize exactly what was happening. When Rue reunited with her father in those final scenes, it became painfully clear that her story had reached its end. The aftermath was just as heartbreaking. Allie discovered her body and delivered the news that no one wanted to hear. Rather than linger on the immediate reaction, the story jumped forward in time, showing a world that had already begun moving on, while still carrying the weight of her loss. It was a choice that left many viewers emotional, frustrated, and deeply divided all at once. But Rue wasn't the only character whose future was revealed. Fans had been waiting to see what would happen with Jules, and her ending turned out to be surprisingly quiet compared to everything else happening around her. Instead of a dramatic farewell, viewers saw her living a very different life, focused on her art and existing in a completely separate world from the chaos that once defined her story. For some fans, it felt realistic. For others, it felt unfinished. Meanwhile, Cassie and Maddie found themselves dealing with consequences that continued long after their earlier decisions. Their connection to Alamo created an increasingly uncomfortable situation, especially for Maddie, who ended up paying a heavy price while trying to help someone else. The frustration among...
And then there was the cast. Normally, when a beloved series comes to an end, social media fills up with emotional tributes, behind-the-scenes memories, heartfelt goodbyes, and lengthy messages reflecting on the journey. But this time, fans noticed something very different. Aside from a few posts, there was surprisingly little fanfare. No flood of emotional farewells, no overwhelming wave of nostalgia. In fact, many viewers interpreted the silence as a sign that some cast members were simply ready to move on. That observation only fueled more discussion about the long-rumored challenges surrounding the show. One of the most revealing conversations came from Alexa Demi, who reflected on how demanding the experience had been for her. She spoke about the emotional intensity of filming, the exhausting schedule, and the difficulty of separating herself from her character.
According to her, the role affected her more deeply than she initially realized. She also opened up about feeling pressured early in her career when it came to certain scenes, explaining that she eventually learned to advocate for her own boundaries and was supported when she did so. Her comments resonated with many fans because they offered a rare glimpse into the reality behind one of television's biggest productions. She also spoke positively about former cast member Barbie Ferreira, expressing respect for the decisions she made regarding her own career and well being. As if that weren't enough, Sam Levinson also found himself addressing criticism that had followed the show throughout the season. From controversial storylines to discussions about nudity and character development, nearly every aspect of the season generated debate. He pushed back against the idea that cast schedules dictated major creative decisions and suggested that audiences might view the season differently if they experienced it all at once rather than week by week. Still, even after all of those explanations, one question remained. What happened with Labyrinth? For years, Labyrinth's music was considered an essential part of Euphoria's identity. His sound helped define the atmosphere of the series and became almost inseparable from the emotional impact of many scenes. This season, however, fans repeatedly pointed out that something felt missing. The soundtrack simply wasn't the same. Despite all the interviews and discussions surrounding the finale, many viewers were left wondering why the subject wasn't addressed more directly. And maybe that's the perfect way to describe the end of Euphoria as a whole. For every question the finale answered, it seemed to create another one. Some viewers loved the risks it took, others hated the choices it made.
Some were moved to tears, while others felt disappointed by how everything concluded. But regardless of where you stand, one thing is impossible to deny. Euphoria remained one of the most talked about shows on television right up until its final moments. After years of controversies, delays, cast changes, fan theories, and non-stop discussion, the story has finally come to an end. The debate, however, is probably just beginning. Because now that the dust has settled, fans are left with one final question. Was this the ending Euphoria needed, or the ending it deserved?